The navy leather Ferragamo loafer grinding into my wrist cost $1,500. I know because I used to count price tags like prayers when I had nothing. But what Elijah didn't know, as he stood over me in that Columbus mall with his new wife watching, was that the man on my phone, the one whose voice just went deadly quiet, doesn't forgive humiliation. The marble felt exactly how I remembered it. Cold. Unforgiving. My shopping bags had exploded around me like evidence of a crime. Tissue paper, receipt ribbons, the new blazer I'd bought for Angela's scholarship interview, scattered across the polished floor of Polaris Fashion Place. Elijah's voice echoed through the atrium, pitched loud enough for the Saturday afternoon crowd. "Jade Parker! Still shopping clearance racks, I see." His friends laughed. His wife, blonde, thin, expensive, smiled that smile women use when they're watching someone beneath them get destroyed. I could hear phones coming out, could feel the weight of eyes on me from every direction. "Actually," I started to say, pushing myself up, but that's when his shoe came down. The pressure on my wrist wasn't crushing. Didn't need to be. It was the positioning that mattered, his $1,500 Italian leather pinning my hand to the floor like I was something he'd stepped in by accident. Something he couldn't be bothered to fully acknowledge. "Careful there," Elijah said, all false concern. "These floors get slippery. Remember when you used to work here? Always mopping, weren't you?" I hadn't worked at Polaris, but I'd wanted to. Had filled out applications at every store in this mall 15 years ago, desperate for anything that paid. They'd all said no. Too inexperienced. Not the right fit. Not the right anything. The crowd had gone silent. That special kind of silence that only happens when strangers smell blood in the water and want to watch what happens next. My phone lay between us, screen cracked from the impact but still lit. The call timer was running. 2 minutes. I'd answered it right before Elijah accidentally bumped into me. Right before his friend jostled me hard enough to make me stumble, and Do-hyun had heard everything. "Elijah," I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. "Remove your foot." He leaned down, face close enough that I could smell his cologne, same brand from 15 years ago when he used to borrow money from me to buy it. "Or what, Jade? You'll call your boyfriend? Oh, wait." He glanced at my hand, finally noticing the platinum wedding band I'd been wearing for 6 months. "Somebody actually married you? Poor bastard probably doesn't know what he got himself into." His friends laughed harder. Someone in the crowd snickered. That's when I heard it. Through the phone speaker, so quiet, most people wouldn't catch it. "Touch her again, and you lose the hand." The voice was calm, almost gentle. The kind of gentle that makes your spine go cold, because you understand instinctively that this gentleness is a choice, not a limitation. Elijah heard it too. I watched his face change, confusion first, then something like recognition as his eyes tracked down to my phone. "Who?" he started to say. 2 men in black suits materialized from the crowd. I hadn't seen them enter, hadn't noticed them approaching. They were just suddenly there, standing 10 feet behind Elijah, hands folded in front of them, faces expressionless. The atrium went from silent to dead quiet. Elijah's foot lifted off my wrist. Not quickly, not like he was scared. Like he was suddenly very aware that the weight distribution in the room had shifted, and he needed to recalculate. I sat up slowly, gathering my scattered bags, my phone. The screen was shattered, but still functional. Do-hyun's name displayed at the top. Not his full name, just the single Korean character I'd programmed in. Hyun, power, Jade. Elijah's voice had changed. Less performative now, actually looking at me for the first time. "Who's on the phone?" I saw Angela then, in the crowd near the Nordstrom entrance. My goddaughter, 17 years old, wearing the bracelet Elijah had given her 3 weeks ago when he'd approached her after school, pretending to be an old family friend doing research on me. Her eyes were wide with confusion and fear. She was supposed to be trying on interview shoes in Macy's, not watching this, not seeing me on my knees in the middle of a mall atrium, not seeing me like this. And then I realized she was wearing the bracelet, the one Elijah had given her. Why had he given my goddaughter jewelry? "Jade?" Do-hyun's voice came through the speaker again, still quiet. "Are you hurt?" I brought the phone to my ear, turning slightly away from Elijah. "I'm fine." "Your wrist." He'd heard the pressure. Somehow he'd heard it through the phone, the shift in my breathing, maybe, or the slight catch in my voice when Elijah's shoe came down. "It's fine," I repeated. "I'm 30 minutes out. Hyjin is 2 minutes away. Can you wait 2 minutes?" I glanced at the 2 men in black suits. They hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, just stood there with the kind of stillness that made everyone around them uncomfortable. Yes, good. Don't engage further. Don't defend yourself. Just wait. The line stayed connected. I could hear road noise in the background, the low murmur of someone speaking Korean in Do-hyun's car. He was cutting short his Chicago trip, coming back early because his wife had been humiliated in a mall. In Korean culture, this mattered. Chemyeon, the concept of face, of honor. Public humiliation wasn't just a personal insult. It was a stain on everything connected to you. Your family, your organization, your name. Do-hyun had explained it to me once, early in our marriage, when I'd asked why he cared so much about appearances. In America, you separate personal and public, he'd said. In Korean culture, they're the same thing. An insult to your wife is an insult to me. An insult to me is an insult to everyone who stands with me. It spreads like blood in water. Most people don't know this, but the quieter a Korean mafia boss speaks, the more dangerous the situation. Do-hyun's voice had dropped to a whisper. Elijah was staring at the two men in black suits. Jade, what the hell is this? Who are these people? I stood up, brushing invisible dust from my jeans. My wrist throbbed where his shoe had pressed down, but nothing was broken, just bruised, just marked. Old friends, I said. One of the men spoke, his voice carrying despite not being raised. Mrs. Park, we'll escort you to your vehicle. Mrs. Park, not Parker, my maiden name, the one Elijah knew. Park, my married name. The one I'd taken 6 months ago when I'd stood in a small ceremony in Do-hyun's home and realized I was marrying into something I didn't fully understand. How did I go from the girl hiding from debt collectors to the woman whose husband could freeze an entire Columbus Mall with 6 words? That story starts in a place most Americans have never heard of, a crumbling orphanage in Accra, Ghana, where I learned that survival means being invisible until the exact moment you need to be seen. But I'll tell you that part later. Right now, you need to understand what happened next. Elijah's face had gone pale, really looking at me now, at the platinum band on my finger, at the 2 men who'd appeared from nowhere, at the phone in my hand, still connected to someone he couldn't see, but could suddenly, instinctively fear. Jade, he said again, and this time there was something new in his voice, something like recognition. Who did you marry? If you're new here, subscribe to see what happens when a mafia boss hears his wife being humiliated in real time, and hit that like button. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments. Elijah finally looked down at my phone, still lying between us, Do-hyun's name displayed in that single Korean character. His face went pale. That's when I heard the footsteps behind him. Not running, just walking with the kind of confidence that doesn't need to rush. And Do-hyun's voice came through one more time, softer now, almost gentle. Step back from her. We'll finish this conversation in person. 24 hours before Elijah's shoe came down on my wrist, I thought my biggest problem was choosing between 2 kids for a single scholarship. The heated floors in our bedroom kept the November cold at bay. I could hear Do-hyun downstairs already, the quiet clink of his teacup against the granite counter, the rustle of Korean newspaper pages turning. Saturday morning. The one day we both pretended his business was normal. I pulled on my robe, silk, expensive, the kind I'd never have touched in a store 15 years ago, and padded down the stairs. Do-hyun sat at the kitchen island, dressed in charcoal slacks and a crisp white shirt, reading Hankuk Ilbo on his tablet. His reading glasses made him look almost professorial, safe. Morning, I said. He glanced up, removed the glasses. Jagia, my love. Green tea is ready. The cup he'd poured for me sat steaming beside his. This was our routine. This careful domesticity we'd built over 6 months of marriage. Me running my nonprofit in the short north. Him managing what he called import-export logistics. Both of us pretending the lines between our worlds stayed clear. I had 2 scholarship applications on my laptop. Minh Nguyen, Vietnamese kid from the West Side, 4.2 GPA, wanted to study engineering. Shanice Thompson, black girl from Linden, raised by her grandmother, dreamed of becoming a nurse. Both deserving. Both needed the $5,000 I could give to exactly one of them. How do you choose? I asked Do-hyun, scrolling through their essays. He sipped his tea. Thought about it. What does your gut say? That I need more funding. Then get more funding. He said it like it was simple, like money appeared when you needed it if you just asked the right people in the right way. And for him, it did. My phone buzzed. Angela. Her text made me smile. Interview Monday. Need shoes. Mall today? I typed back, Polaris at 2? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, perfect. Love you, Auntie. Have you ever built something pure with dirty hands? That's what my nonprofit was. Every scholarship I gave out, every kid I helped, it was real. It mattered. But the money that funded it, that question kept me awake most nights. Church? Doohyun asked, already knowing the answer. Always. He didn't come with me. Never did. The black church aunties would have had too many questions about my Korean husband who didn't speak much and had that particular stillness that made people uncomfortable. So I went alone, sang the hymns, listened to Pastor Jenkins preach about redemption, and fielded the subtle interrogations. How's your husband's business, baby? Good, Sister Patricia. Very good. And he treats you right? Yes, ma'am. That sound. The one that meant we're watching. We're not sure about this, but we love you anyway. After church, I drove to the Korean grocery on Kenny Road. This was the other community I navigated. The Ajumas, the Korean aunties, who watched me with Sunwoo's daughter-shaped confusion written all over their faces. I bowed to Mrs. Kim at the entrance. Annyeonghaseyo, Ajuma. Hello, auntie. She nodded back, eyes narrowing slightly. Evaluating. I grabbed a basket, headed for the banchan section. The fermented side dishes Dohyun liked. The small ways I tried to belong to his world. Jade, Mrs. Park appeared beside me, her voice carrying that particular Korean inflection that meant judgment disguised as concern. Your appa okay? Haven't seen him lately. He's well. Thank you for asking. And your husband's family? They visit from Seoul? Not yet. That sound again. Different language, same meaning. We're watching. We're not sure. But you're one of us now, so we'll be kind. I paid in cash. Dohyun always gave me cash, never traceable credit cards for personal purchases, and loaded the groceries into my Lexus. Another gift. Another reminder that my life now came with strings I couldn't always see. My phone rang as I pulled out of the parking lot. Hey, Jin. Dohyun's right hand, the one who handled things that needed handling. Jade. His voice always had this clipped quality. Impatient. Like every conversation cost him money. Got a minute? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, just someone's been asking questions about your nonprofit, your donor list. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What kind of questions? The kind that suggest they're digging, looking for connections. He paused. You keep good records, yeah? Everything separated? Of course. Was it separated? Did I ever really keep the lines clear? Good. Just be careful. Let me know if anyone approaches you directly. He hung up before I could ask who was asking. That was Hae-jin. Information flowed one direction only. My phone rang again almost immediately. Sunwoo this time. My father, not by blood but by choice. The man who'd adopted me from that Ghanaian orphanage and brought me to Ohio when I was 8 years old. Appa? Daughter. His voice had that fuzzy quality lately, the dementia creeping in. When you visit, I make jjigae. Tomorrow, Appa. I'll come tomorrow. Good, good. You bring. What's his name? Husband? Dohyun. And maybe, if he's not working, he always working. Sunwoo switched to English, then back to Korean mid-sentence. Tell him grandfather says annyeong. I will. After he hung up, I sat in the grocery store parking lot for a long moment. 3 communities, 3 ways of being watched. The black aunties at church, the Korean ajumas at the market, Doohyun's organization, always circling, always measuring my usefulness. I drove home, spent the afternoon reviewing scholarship applications, made dinner, kimchi jjigae, that probably wasn't as good as Sunwoo's, but Dohyun ate it anyway, complimenting the flavor in that gentle way he had when we were alone. He came home late that night. Past 11. I was already in bed, pretending to sleep, when I heard him in the bathroom, the water running longer than usual. I opened my eyes, slipped out of bed, stood in the bathroom doorway. Dohyun was washing his hands, scrubbing them. The cuffs of his white shirt were rolled up, and I could see it, small dark spots on the fabric. Not dirt, blood. He saw me in the mirror, didn't stop washing. Business meeting ran long, he said quietly. Okay. He dried his hands, unbuttoned the shirt, dropped it in the hamper. When he touched my face, his hands were clean. Always clean by the time they touched me. We didn't talk about it. We never did. That night, as Dohyun slept beside me, I got a text from Angela. 3 words. Someone followed me. I sat up in the dark, phone screen casting blue light. Before I could respond, another message appeared, a photo of Angela leaving school. And in the background, barely visible but unmistakable, Elijah's car. The next morning, I called Angela 3 times before she picked up. Her voice had that tight, careful quality that meant she was lying to make me feel better. It's probably nothing, she said. It wasn't nothing. Angela. I kept my voice calm, measured. The way I'd learned to speak when I needed information from someone who was scared. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. When did you first notice someone following you? Silence on the other end. Then, Thursday, after debate practice. 3 days ago. 3 days she'd been carrying this fear alone. And the bracelet, I said. The one you're wearing in the photo, where did you get it? Her voice cracked. He gave it to me. At school, said he was an old family friend, that he was doing research on you for a reunion thing. He seemed nice, Jade. He knew things about you, real things. My chest went tight. What things? He said you guys used to date, that you worked together years ago. He asked about your husband, about where you get your money now. She paused. I thought I was helping. I thought, what did you tell him? Nothing. I mean, I said you ran a nonprofit, that you were married, but I didn't know his name or anything important, I swear. I believed her. Angela was 17, smart as hell, but she'd been raised to see the good in people, to trust adults who smiled and asked friendly questions. Have you ever had someone from your past show up right when you thought you were finally safe? Someone who knew you when you were broke, desperate, different? Elijah Brooks knew that version of me, the one I'd spent 15 years trying to bury. I met him in Atlanta when I was 23. Fresh out of a community college degree that meant nothing, working 2 jobs, morning shift at a coffee shop, nights doing data entry for a law firm. He was a consultant. That's what he called it. Consultant. Like that explained the nice car and the expensive suits and the way he talked about money like it was something that just appeared when you needed it. He was charming. God, he was charming. Took me to restaurants I couldn't pronounce. Bought me dresses I'd never have touched in a store. Made me feel like I'd finally made it out. Out of Ghana. Out of poverty. Out of invisibility. Then he needed a favor. Just co-sign this loan, baby. Bank wants to see another name on the paperwork. You won't have to pay anything. I've got it covered. I signed. $12,000. Then another loan. $18,000. Then a third. By the time I realized what he'd done, he was gone. Disappeared with $47,000 of debt in my name and a phone number that went straight to voicemail. I fled Atlanta. Spent 3 years in Chicago hiding from collectors, working under the table, rebuilding my credit dollar by dollar. Then came to Columbus because Ohio was far enough from everything and cheap enough to start over. And now he was back. Angela, I said, forcing myself to sound calmer than I felt. If he approaches you again, if you even see him near your school, you call me immediately. Do you understand? Okay. Not probably nothing. Not I'll handle it. You call me. I will, I promise. She went quiet, then said something that made my blood freeze. Jade, he knew about Accra. He knew about Ghana. How would he know that? I never even knew that until last year. My hands went cold. I'd never told Elijah about Ghana, about the orphanage, about Sunwoo adopting me when I was 8. That part of my life came after him, after I'd rebuilt myself in Columbus, after I'd stopped running, which meant Elijah had been researching me, digging into my background, looking for leverage or weakness or something I couldn't name yet but could feel pressing down like weight on my chest. I have to go, I told Angela. Stay at school today. Don't leave campus. I'll pick you up at 3. I hung up and stared at my phone. Do-hyun's name sat at the top of my recent calls. 1 tap. That's all it would take. But what would I say? My ex-boyfriend from 15 years ago is asking questions about me? That sounded paranoid. Childish. And if I told Do-hyun, he would handle it. I knew exactly how he would handle it. The Korean organizational structure didn't do warnings. Threats to family, to anyone under protection, were met with absolute response. Jung, that's what Do-hyun had called it once. The deep bond of loyalty that meant his people became your problems became his problems, and solutions were permanent. I wasn't ready for permanent. Not yet. Here's what nobody tells you about escaping poverty. You never really escape. You just get better at hiding that it still lives inside you, waiting. I needed to think. Needed to clear my head. So I drove to Polaris Fashion Place, the same mall where I'd once filled out applications at every store and been told no, not the right fit, not what we're looking for. The parking lot was half full. Saturday afternoon shoppers, families, teenagers, normal people living normal lives. I walked through the main entrance. Nordstrom to my left, Macy's straight ahead. The marble floors gleamed under the skylight. And I remembered standing in this exact spot 12 years ago, counting change in my pocket to see if I could afford the bus fare home and still eat dinner. Now everything looked different. The security guard near the entrance nodded at me, respectfully. Sales associates in the windows smiled as I passed, instead of watching my hands to make sure I wasn't stealing. I was acceptable here now. Welcome. The kind of woman who belonged in expensive stores because I had the clothes and the car and the wedding ring that said I could afford to be here. The irony made my stomach turn. I was finally acceptable because I'd married into an organization built on violence. Because Do-hyun's money, dirty, complicated, blood-stained money, had bought me a place in the world that my college degree and nonprofit work never could. My phone buzzed. Angela, can we still get shoes tomorrow? Interviews Monday. Really nervous. I stood in the center of the atrium, other shoppers flowing around me like water around a stone, and made a decision. Tomorrow. Broad daylight. Public place. What could Elijah possibly do in a crowded mall? I typed back, Polaris at 2? 3 dots appeared immediately. Perfect. Love you, Auntie. I thought about calling Heijin, arranging security, having Do-hyun's people positioned throughout the mall just in case. My finger hovered over his name in my contacts. But then I thought, it's just a mall. It's broad daylight. Elijah was a con man, not a killer. He wanted money or leverage or some kind of closure I couldn't give him. Whatever he was planning, it would involve words, not violence. I could handle words. I agreed to meet Angela at Polaris the next afternoon. As I sent the text confirming, I thought about calling Heijin to arrange security. My finger hovered over his name. But then I thought, it's just a mall. It's broad daylight. What's the worst that could happen? Drop a comment. Would you tell your husband about your dangerous ex? Or handle it yourself? I'd find out the answer in less than 24 hours. The next afternoon, I dressed down deliberately. Jeans from Target, plain cardigan, hair pulled back in a simple bun, standing in my closet full of clothes. Do-hyun bought me. I chose to look like the old Jade. Maybe that was my first mistake. I spotted Elijah across the mall before he saw me. Shinier, older, laughing too loud with people who looked like they stepped out of his Instagram fantasy. He was standing near the Nordstrom entrance with 4 people. A blonde woman in head-to-toe designer, his new wife, I assumed. 2 men who looked like college buddies gone corporate. And another woman recording everything on her phone like their afternoon was content worth documenting. Elijah's laugh carried across the atrium. That same performative boom he'd used in restaurants when he wanted other tables to notice him. To see how important he was. How loved. Jade. Angela appeared beside me, slightly breathless from rushing. Sorry I'm late. Debate practice ran over. I couldn't take my eyes off Elijah's group. They were moving toward Macy's, same direction we needed to go for the shoe department. It's fine, I said. Let's make this quick. We walked through Polaris like I was navigating a minefield. Every corner held ghosts. The Foot Locker, where I'd begged for a job 12 years ago. The Forever 21, where security followed me so closely I could hear his radio crackling. The food court where I'd counted change to see if I could afford a small fries and still have bus fare home. There's a special kind of humiliation that comes from being treated like trash in the exact place you used to work. Every corner of that mall held a memory of me being invisible, being watched, being less than. But now everything was different. The sales associate in Macy's greeted me with a smile. Welcome. Can I help you find anything today? Not suspicion. Welcome. Angela headed straight for the display of interview-appropriate heels. Black pumps, sensible 2-inch heel. Nothing flashy. What do you think? She asked, holding up a pair. I was about to answer when I saw them again. Elijah's group, crossing into Macy's from the other entrance. His wife was laughing at something he'd said. The woman with the phone was still recording. They hadn't seen us yet. Those are perfect, I said quickly. Try them on. We'll take them. Angela's eyes lit up. Don't you want to see the price first? Doesn't matter. If they fit, they're yours. She disappeared into the shoe section to find her size, and I positioned myself to keep Elijah's group in my peripheral vision. Calculating. They were 20 feet away. Moving toward menswear. If Angela was fast, we could pay and leave before. Jade? His voice cut through the ambient mall noise like a knife. I turned slowly. Elijah stood 10 feet away, his whole group behind him, all of them staring. Jade Parker. Oh my God. He took 3 steps closer, arms spreading like we were old friends reuniting. I can't believe it's you. His wife whispered something. The woman with the phone raised it slightly, capturing the moment. Elijah, I said. Flat, giving him nothing. Wow, how long has it been? 15 years? He looked back at his group. This is Jade. We used to, what would you call it, date? Work together? He smiled. The crowd smiled with him. It's complicated. It's not complicated, I said quietly. You stole from me and disappeared. That's pretty simple. His smile didn't falter. See, that's not how I remember it. I remember you co-signing some loans because you believed in me, because we were partners. Partners don't leave $47,000 of debt in someone else's name. The group behind him shifted. Uncomfortable, but Elijah just laughed, loud. That boom that said we're all having fun here, right? Still holding grudges, I see. That's so you, Jade. He stepped closer. Still shopping clearance racks? The comment was loud enough to carry. Other shoppers glanced over. Angela appeared from the shoe section, box in hand, and froze when she saw Elijah. Recognition flickered across her face. Angela! Elijah's voice went warm, friendly. Good to see you again, sweetheart. Did you tell your aunt about our conversation? Angela's eyes went wide. Guilty. I felt my phone in my pocket. Thought about calling Heijin. Having someone here in 10 minutes who could make this stop. But what would that prove? That I needed my husband's people to handle my ex-boyfriend? That I couldn't stand on my own? We're leaving, I said, taking Angela's elbow. Oh, come on. Elijah moved to block our path. Not aggressive, just present. Don't be like that. I wanted to apologize for how things ended. I'm different now. Married. Successful. He gestured to his wife. Tiffany's been amazing for me. Really helped me turn my life around. Tiffany waved. Smiled. Oblivious. That's great, Elijah. We really have to. One of his friends, the shorter one in the polo shirt, stepped sideways, bumping into me hard enough that my purse slipped off my shoulder. Oh, my bad. He steadied me with both hands. Too familiar. Too long. The strap of my shopping bag chose that moment to tear. Everything inside, receipts, Angela's scholarship paperwork, my wallet, scattered across the marble floor. I stumbled, caught myself. But my phone flew from my pocket, landing screen up 3 feet away. Everyone moved at once. Elijah's friend apologizing, Angela dropping to help gather my things, Elijah standing over me with that same smile, that same performance, saying loudly enough for the gathering crowd. Careful, Jade. These floors get slippery. Remember when you used to work here? Always mopping, weren't you? I hadn't worked at Polaris. But the lie didn't matter. What mattered was the implication. The image he was painting for his phone recording friend and the shoppers slowing down to watch. Poor Jade. Still struggling, still clumsy, still less than. I saw my phone light up. Emergency protocol. The setting Do-hun had insisted on when we got married. If the phone detected a fall or sudden impact while unlocked, it automatically called him. The call connected. I could see the timer starting. Do-hun's name at the top of my screen. And he would hear everything. My palms hit the marble. Shopping bags exploded around me. The mall went silent. And then Elijah's $1,500 Ferragamo loafer came down on my wrist, pinning it to the floor like I was something he'd stepped in by mistake. That's when I heard it. From my phone, lying between us. Do-hun's voice, so quiet most people wouldn't catch it. But Elijah's face changed. He'd heard it too. Touch her again, and you lose the hand. Everything slowed down. I could hear my own breathing. Angela's gasp somewhere behind me. The shuffle of feet as people pulled out phones to record. And then I heard the footsteps, deliberate, unhurried, closing in. The 2 men in black suits didn't run, didn't shout. They just appeared behind Elijah, like they'd been there all along, and suddenly the entire atrium held its breath. Elijah saw them in the reflection of a storefront window. His body went rigid. The pressure on my wrist disappeared as his foot lifted, and he stepped back, hands rising slightly in that universal gesture of I'm not a threat. Whoa, hey, we were just talking. Old friends catching up. Neither man spoke. They just stood there, hands folded in front of them, faces blank. The kind of stillness that makes your hindbrain scream danger, even when there's no obvious weapon, no raised voice, no movement at all. Jade. A third voice. Sharp. Clipped. Korean accented but perfect English. Haijin materialized from the crowd near the Nordstrom entrance. He moved through the frozen shoppers like water finding a path, his charcoal suit immaculate, his expression pleasant in a way that somehow made everything worse. He reached me first, extended his hand. Mrs. Park, are you hurt? Mrs. Park, not Jade. The formal address that put distance between us, that made this official. I took his hand and let him help me up. My wrist throbbed where Elijah's shoe had pressed down, but nothing was broken. I'm fine. Your things. Heijin gestured, and one of the suited men immediately began collecting my scattered belongings with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Wallet. Receipts, Angela's scholarship papers. My phone, still connected to Dohyun, call timer at 2 minutes 17 seconds. Heijin picked up the phone, brought it to his ear. Sajang-nim, I have her. She's unharmed. A pause. Yes, sir. I'll handle it. He ended the call and slipped my phone into his jacket pocket. Then he turned to Elijah. Mr. Brooks, not a question. He knew the name. My name is Heijin Park. I represent Mrs. Park's husband. He produced a business card from his breast pocket. Black cardstock, silver lettering, nothing else. I believe there's been a misunderstanding here. You have 2 hours to call this number and arrange compensation. Elijah stared at the card. Compensation? For what? I didn't. This was an accident. You put your foot on her wrist. Heijin's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. In front of witnesses. After making deliberately humiliating statements loud enough for the crowd to hear, he glanced at the woman still holding her phone up, recording everything. I'm sure the video will clarify the sequence of events. The woman lowered her phone immediately. 2 hours, Heijin repeated, pressing the card into Elijah's hand. To discuss how you'll make this right. Mall security finally arrived. 3 guards, radios crackling, looking confused about what they'd walked into. The senior guard, a heavy-set man in his 50s, approached cautiously. We got a call about a disturbance? Heijin turned to him with a smile that could have sold insurance. Just a minor accident. Mrs. Park slipped. These gentlemen helped her up. All resolved now. The guard looked at me, at Elijah's pale face, at the 2 silent men in suits, at the scattered shopping bags now being collected. Ma'am, you need medical attention? No, I'm fine, thank you. The guard hesitated, clearly sensing something wrong but unable to identify what. Finally, he nodded. All right, everyone move along. Show's over. The crowd dispersed slowly, reluctantly, phones disappearing back into pockets. Heijin gestured toward the back corridor near the loading dock. Mrs. Park, this way. He led us, me and Angela, through the service hallways of Polaris, past employee break rooms and storage areas, to a black Mercedes SUV parked in the delivery zone. One of the suited men opened the back door for us. Angela climbed in first, silent and shaking. I followed. Heijin got in the front passenger seat. The driver, another man in a black suit I'd never seen before, pulled out of the mall without a word. We'd driven 3 blocks before Heijin spoke again. Dohyun Nim heard everything. He's cutting the Chicago meeting short. He'll be home in 4 hours. My stomach dropped. It's handled. You handled it. He doesn't need to. He needs to. Heijin turned in his seat to look at me. His expression softened slightly, almost sympathetic. You need to understand, this isn't about you anymore. It's about Chemyeon, face, honor, his face. You're his wife. Attack on you is attack on him. Attack on him is attack on everyone who stands with him. This is how it works. I don't want this to escalate. It already escalated when Brooks put his foot on your wrist in public. Heijin's voice went sharp again, impatient. What most people don't understand about Korean organized crime is that it's not about violence. Violence is the last resort, the admission of failure. It's about structure, hierarchy, codes that go back generations. But when those codes are broken, that's when things get biblical. Angela was crying quietly in the seat next to me. I put my arm around her. How long have you been watching him? I asked. Elijah. Heijin glanced at the driver, some silent communication passing between them. Since he approached Angela at school 3 weeks ago, we wanted to see what he was planning. If he was working alone or with someone. And, still determining that, the bracelet he gave your goddaughter had a listening device in it. Amateur work, dollar store tech, but effective enough to capture some conversations. My blood went cold. What conversations? Mostly Angela talking about her scholarship interview. You talking about your nonprofit, some mentions of Dohyun's name, though she didn't seem to know much about what he does. Heijin paused. We removed the device yesterday, kept it running on a loop so Brooks wouldn't know we found it. I thought about all the conversations I'd had with Angela in the past 3 weeks. Board meetings I'd mentioned, donor calls, casual comments about Dohyun's schedule. What does he want? Money, probably. Revenge, maybe. Men like Brooks don't think far ahead. They see opportunity and grab it. Heijin's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then at me. Elijah didn't call. He missed the 2-hour window. Angela's voice was small. What does that mean? Hejin's expression didn't change. It means he chose the hard way. She never saw this coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when organizational honor is at stake. The SUV pulled up to my house 20 minutes later. I saw Do-hyun's car already in the driveway, the black Genesis sedan he drove when he wanted to be subtle. He wasn't supposed to be back until tomorrow. The front door opened before we reached it. Do-hyun stood there in the doorway, still in his traveling clothes. Dark slacks, white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, no jacket. He looked like he'd driven straight from the airport. From 20 feet away, I could see his face. Calm. Completely calm. That's how I knew Elijah was in real trouble. Do-hyun didn't raise his voice. He never does. He helped me inside, checked my wrist where Elijah's shoe had left a red mark, already bruising, the skin hot and tender, and then said 4 words that changed everything. Tell me about him. Do-hyun made tea with his own hands, something he never did, and I knew before he spoke that this conversation would end with me learning something I couldn't unknow. We sat in his office, the one room in our house I rarely entered, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the backyard, mahogany desk, bookshelves lined with volumes in Korean and English, a safe built into the wall behind a painting of Seoul's skyline. Angela had gone home with Hejin's driver, just me and Do-hyun now, the tea steaming between us, green tea, always green tea. The ritual that meant we were about to discuss something that mattered. His name is Elijah Brooks, I started. My voice sounded strange, distant. We dated 15 years ago in Atlanta. I know his name. Do-hyun's tone was gentle, patient. Tell me what he did to you. So I did. The whole story. How we met when I was 23 and desperate to believe someone like him could love someone like me. The restaurants, the dresses, the promises, then the loans. 12,000, then 18, then 17 more. My signature on documents I didn't fully read because I trusted him. By the time I realized what he'd done, he was gone, I said. $47,000 of debt in my name. Collectors calling me at work. Threats to garnish my wages. Do-hyun listened without interrupting. Hands folded on his desk. Eyes on me. Really listening in that way he had. Like every word I spoke was being cataloged, analyzed, fitted into some larger pattern I couldn't see. When I finished, he opened his tablet, turned it to face me. Elijah Brooks, born April 7th, 1981, in Detroit. Moved to Atlanta in 2003, currently residing in Chicago. He scrolled. 3 failed businesses, 7 credit cards and collections, 2 divorces, currently married to Tiffany Brooks, who has no idea about his real financial situation. I stared at the screen. It was all there. Everything. Addresses, bank account numbers, photographs of Elijah leaving buildings I didn't recognize, timestamps, dates. How long have you? 3 weeks. Since he approached Angela. Do-hyun scrolled further. But there's more you should know. Elijah's current debts aren't to banks. He owes money to loan sharks, Korean loan sharks, connected to a crew in Chicago. My stomach dropped. Connected how? They're rivals, not directly opposed to us, but competing interests in the Midwest. Do-hyun's voice stayed calm, explanatory, like he was teaching me something important. Elijah's encounter with you at Polaris wasn't accidental. He was scouting, gathering information. For them? He thinks he's being clever, thinks he's found leverage. The wealthy Korean husband of his ex-girlfriend thinks he can sell information or create enough trouble to earn debt forgiveness. Do-hyun closed the tablet. What he doesn't understand is that we've been watching him watch you. The tea had gone cold. I wrapped my hands around the cup anyway, needing something to hold. What happens now? Hejin will arrange a meeting. Neutral ground will make it clear that pursuing you further is unwise. He paused. This can be resolved quietly. No violence. No escalation. Just clarity about boundaries. Can't you just let it go? The words came out desperate. Pleading. He's pathetic, Do-hyun. He's broke and married to someone who doesn't know who he really is. His life is already falling apart. Why make it worse? Do-hyun's expression didn't change. Because Kemyeon, Chamyeon, face, honor, cannot be restored privately. He humiliated you in public. The response must be public enough that the message is clear. What message? That you are protected, that threats against you have consequences. He stood, moved to the window. It's not about revenge, Jade. It's about precedent. If I let this pass, others will see it as weakness, will think they can target you to get to me. I can't allow that. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say I didn't need his protection, his codes, his organizational logic that turned my ex-boyfriend's cruelty into some chess move in a game I never agreed to play. But I was too tired, and my wrist still throbbed. "There's something else," Do-hun said. He wasn't looking at me anymore. Looking out at the yard where snow was starting to fall. The reason I was in Chicago. I wasn't just there for business. I was meeting with the chairman. "Your boss?" "Yes. He flew in from Seoul specifically to discuss the Sunwoo situation." I went still. "What Sunwoo situation?" Do-hyun turned from the window, walked to his desk, unlocked the bottom drawer and pulled out a folder. Old. The kind with actual paper inside, not digital files. He opened it, pulled out a photograph, placed it in front of me. Two young men, maybe 18, 19 years old, standing on a dock with fishing boats behind them and Korean signage I couldn't read. One of them was clearly Do-hun, younger, thinner, with longer hair, but the same eyes, the same stillness. The other was Sunwoo, my father, 30 years younger, grinning at the camera with his arm around Do-hun's shoulders. "Busan?" Do-hun said quietly. 1987. I couldn't breathe. "You knew my father?" "He saved my life." Do-hun sat back down, poured himself more tea, and for the next 20 minutes, he talked more than I'd ever heard him talk. He told me about growing up in Busan. About being recruited into the organization at 16, not a choice really, but the only option when your family owed debts they couldn't pay. About working the docks, moving cargo, learning the business from the bottom up. Sunwoo was older, 22. Already established, smart, good with numbers, the kind of person the organization valued. "There was a rival crew," Do-hyun said. "They wanted territory we controlled. They approached Sunwoo, offered him money to provide information. Schedules, shipment routes, names. He betrayed you? He was supposed to. They paid him $20,000 American dollars, more money than he'd ever seen, more money than his family would see in 5 years. Do-hyun's voice stayed even, factual. But the information they wanted would have gotten people killed, including me. I was supposed to be on a boat they planned to intercept." Do-hyun handed me the photograph. On the back, in faded handwriting, was a date, June 15th, 1987. A location, Jagalchi Market, Busan. And beneath it, 3 words in English I'd never expected to see Sunwoo write. "I owe everything." "He warned you?" "The night before the ambush. Told me everything. Gave back the money." Do-hun paused. "When the organization found out, they gave him a choice. Take the beating meant for me as punishment or die. He chose the beating." I thought about Sunwoo, the limp he'd always had in his right leg, the scar on his ribs he'd never explained, the way he flinched when doors slammed. "They almost killed him anyway," Do-hyun continued. "Would have, probably, except the chairman intervened. Said Sunwoo had proven loyalty in the only way that mattered, by choosing conscience over money. But he couldn't stay. The crew who tried to buy him would have come for him. So he fled. Went to Ghana first, then America. Most people think organized crime is about money and violence. It's not. It's about memory. Korean families remember favors and betrayals across generations, continents, decades. My father saved a boy's life in Busan in 1987. That boy became my husband in Columbus in 2019. You think that's coincidence? When did you find out about me? 5 years ago. The chairman keeps track of people who were once ours, where they are, what they're doing, if they're safe. Do-hun met my eyes. When we learned Sunwoo had adopted a daughter and was living in Ohio, running a small restaurant, I was curious. I owed him my life. Wanted to know if he was okay. So you watched me. At first, yes, from a distance. You were working for that import company downtown, legitimate business, but they occasionally contracted with us for logistics. I saw your name in their employee directory, saw your photo, read your file. My hands were shaking. How long before you approached me? 2 years. He said it without shame, without apology. I watched you build your nonprofit, watched you navigate both communities, Black and Korean, trying to belong to both, belonging fully to neither. I saw who you were, what you cared about, and somewhere in that watching, unhenhai, profound debt, obligation to Sunwoo, it became something else. Some of you will say Do-hyun manipulated me, that watching me for years before we met is predatory. Others will understand the Korean concept of unhai, profound debt that demands repayment. I'm still not sure which side I'm on. Did you marry me to settle a debt? Do-hyun was quiet for a long moment. It started that way. Obligation. The knowledge that I owed Sunwoo everything and he was getting old, his mind failing, his daughter alone and struggling. I could protect you, could make sure you had resources. That felt like the right kind of repayment. And then I met you. Actually spoke to you. Not just read reports. And you were. He paused, searching for words. Jung, it's hard to translate. A bond that grows slowly, from duty or proximity into something deeper. I stood up. Needed to move. Needed air. I need to think. I understand. Do I get to choose? My voice broke. Or is this just another debt being settled? Another transaction in your organizational ledger? Doohan stood too, moved around the desk but didn't touch me. You always have a choice. You can leave. Take Angela, your nonprofit, start over somewhere I'll never find you. Or you can stay. Let me protect you the way your father once protected me. But whatever you choose, it has to be yours. I stood in Dohan's office, staring at that photograph of my father. Younger, stronger, standing next to the teenage boy who would grow up to become my husband. And Do-hyun asked me a question that would define everything that came next. Will you let me protect you the way your father once protected me? Or do you want to handle Elijah yourself? Before I could answer, his phone rang. Haejin's name on the screen. Do-hyun answered, listened, and his face changed. Elijah just met with the Chicago crew. He gave them our home address and your nonprofit's location. He's escalating. The meeting with Elijah happened 3 days later at a Korean barbecue restaurant off Bethel Road. Haejin chose the location, neutral ground where serious business gets discussed over grilled meat and soju. Elijah walked into that Korean barbecue restaurant like he owned it, all swagger and fake confidence, completely unaware he was stepping into a carefully constructed trap. Haejin was already seated when Elijah arrived. Corner booth, back to the wall. 2 of Do-hyun's people at a table near the door. Another pair at the bar. Elijah didn't notice them. Didn't notice the server who bowed slightly to Haejin before taking Elijah's coat. Didn't notice anything except the opportunity he thought he was walking into. Thanks for meeting me, Elijah said, sliding into the booth. This is very mob movie. You guys always do business over Korean food? Haejin smiled. Polite, cold. It's civilized. Sit, eat, talk like adults. He ordered for both of them. Galbi, kimchi, banchan. The server brought everything efficiently, set up the grill, disappeared. So, Elijah said, pouring himself water like he was at a casual lunch. About the misunderstanding at the mall, I think we got off on the wrong foot. You put your foot on Mrs. Park's wrist. That was an accident. Things got heated. Old feelings, you know how it is. Elijah leaned back. But I'm willing to let it go. Forget the whole thing. We're all adults here. Haejin set down his chopsticks. You misunderstand the purpose of this meeting. You're not here to negotiate. You're here to listen. Meanwhile, across town, I pulled up to Sunwoo's apartment complex near OSU campus. The building was old, subsidized housing for seniors. My father had lived here for 8 years, refusing to move somewhere nicer, even when I could afford to pay for it. I knocked, waited, heard shuffling inside. Nuguseyo? Who is it? Sunwoo's voice through the door. Appa, it's me, Jade. The locks clicked. 3 of them. He opened the door, face lighting up when he saw me. Tall, daughter. Why you no call first? I would make jjigae. It's okay, Appa. I just wanted to talk. Back at the restaurant, Elijah was starting to understand he'd miscalculated. You approached Mrs. Park's goddaughter at school, Haejin said, voice still pleasant, still calm. You gave the child a bracelet with a listening device. You gathered information about Mrs. Park's nonprofit, her home address, her daily routine. Then you deliberately humiliated her in a public space. He paused. These are facts, not interpretations. Facts. She's my ex-girlfriend. I was catching up. You were building leverage for the Chicago crew you owe money to. Haejin pulled out his phone, scrolled, turned it to show Elijah. We have photographs of you meeting with them. We have financial records showing your debts. We know exactly why you're here and who sent you. Elijah's face went pale. Here's something you need to understand about Korean organized crime. They don't threaten. They document. By the time Haejin left that restaurant, they knew Elijah's bank accounts, his mistresses, his fake business licenses, and which of his friends would turn on him for $5,000. In Sunwoo's living room, I sat on his worn couch and pulled out the photograph Do-hyun had shown me. Sunwoo and teenage Do-hyun on the Busan dock. Appa, I need you to tell me about this. He took the photo with trembling hands, stared at it for a long moment. When he looked up, his eyes were clear, lucid. The dementia fog temporarily lifted. Ah, so he told you. He told me you saved his life, that you were supposed to betray him but didn't, that you took a beating and fled Korea. I leaned forward. Why didn't you tell me? When I started dating Do-hyun, when I married him, why didn't you say anything? Because debt must be paid. Sun-woo's voice was firm, certain. The voice of the man he used to be before his mind started failing. He owed me life. I owed him. Jungmal Mianhai, I'm truly sorry. For running, for being coward, for making him wonder all these years if I betrayed him or saved him. You saved him. Yes, but I ran. In Korean culture, you stay and face consequence. You accept punishment with dignity. I ran to Ghana, hid, adopted you to have something good, something pure that I protected instead of abandoned. His hands shook. When you met Do-hyun, I knew who he was. Right away. His face, his name, his business. I knew. And you said nothing? Debt must be paid, Tal. He protected you, married you, gave you safety. That is how he repays what I did. Now debt is settled. Back at the restaurant, Elijah tried one more time. Desperate now. Look, Jade always liked dangerous men. She's probably using you, using your money to fund that nonprofit. You should see the donations she's getting. Haejin stopped eating mid-bite. The restaurant went quiet. Not actually quiet. The other diners kept talking, the grill kept sizzling, but something in Haejin's stillness made the world feel muted. You just made this personal, Haejin said softly. What? I'm just saying. You had a chance to apologize and walk away. You chose differently. Haejin stood, placed cash on the table. Someone will be in touch. At Sun-woo's apartment, my father suddenly smiled. The dementia fog rolling back in. You bring peanuts? The ones from Ghana? I had, always did. I pulled the bag from my purse, and his whole face transformed, like a child's. Pure joy. Aha, best peanuts, you good daughter, best daughter. He ate one, then another, then forgot he was eating them and asked if I'd brought peanuts. Then clarity returned, brief, fleeting. Annie, no, listen to me, Tal. He gripped my hand. I saw you as only good thing I ever did. Let him protect you? I can't anymore. My mind is, he tapped his temple, going away. Soon I won't remember who you are, but you remember this. You are not debt. You are not payment. You are love. His love. Real love. Jung Jung. Understand? Her father knew all along. Hit like if family secrets hit different when they involve organized crime. I left Sun-woo's apartment with tears I didn't let him see and a clarity I didn't want. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. Haejin. Elijah contacted a Columbus Dispatch reporter claiming you run a money laundering nonprofit. We intercepted the communication. He has documents, real ones, showing donor connections to our businesses. The story would destroy everything you built and trigger federal investigation. My hands gripped the steering wheel. Do-hyun wants to know, do we eliminate the reporter's source? Or do we let Elijah destroy himself publicly and use it as opportunity? I had 48 hours to decide what kind of person I was going to be. 36 hours later, the decision was made for me. Angela called, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Jade, the committee. Angela's voice broke on the phone, and in that moment, every restraint I'd placed on myself, every moral line I'd drawn, shattered like the glass ceiling I thought I'd escaped. Slow down, baby. What happened? Someone sent photos to the scholarship committee. Pictures of me with you. Captions calling your nonprofit a criminal front. They canceled my interview. She gasped for air between sobs. The email said they can't consider candidates with questionable family associations. They're giving the scholarship to someone else. I sat down. Had to. My legs wouldn't hold me. Angela, listen to me. We'll fix this. I'll call them. I'll explain. There's more. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They sent the same photos to Ohio State. My acceptance might be under review. Jade, is it true? Is your nonprofit? She couldn't finish. No, it's not true. Someone is trying to hurt me by hurting you. Who would do that? Elijah. Of course, Elijah. I'll handle it. Don't worry about. Jade. Angela's voice hardened. Older suddenly. Is my future bought with someone else's pain? All the help you've given me, the SAT tutoring, the college applications, this apartment you helped pay for, where does that money come from? I couldn't answer. Not honestly. Not without admitting that the clean life I'd shown her, the nonprofit work, the respectable marriage, it was all built on a foundation of violence and control I'd chosen to ignore because it benefited me. I have to go, she said, and hung up. I sat in my car outside the nonprofit's office building and stared at my phone. 3 missed calls from the board president, 7 emails with subject lines like urgent, donor concerns, and federal inquiry. Imagine spending 10 years building something clean, something that helps kids escape the poverty you barely survived. Now imagine watching someone destroy it in 48 hours because hurting you makes him feel powerful. The board meeting happened 2 hours later. Emergency session. All 12 members crammed into our small conference room on High Street. The FBI contacted 3 of our major donors, Patricia, the board president, said without preamble, asking questions about source of funds. One donor already pulled their commitment, $15,000 we were counting on for next quarter's programming. What kind of questions? I asked. Whether they knew about your husband's business interests, whether donations were being used to launder money. Patricia's face was pained. She'd been with me since the beginning. Believed in the work. Jade, I know this is garbage, but perception matters. If donors think we're connected to organized crime, we're not. Your husband is. The words hung in the air. True. Undeniable. Do-hyun's legitimate businesses donate to us, import-export companies, shipping logistics, everything properly documented and taxed. I kept my voice steady. Professional. If the FBI has questions, we cooperate fully. We have nothing to hide. And if they find connections anyway? If donors keep pulling out? Another board member, Thomas, an accountant who'd helped set up our 501c3 status, leaned forward. Jade, I love what we do here, but I can't be associated with federal investigation of my employer. He was resigning, right there, in the middle of crisis. 2 other board members exchanged glances, thinking the same thing. My life's work. The one pure thing I'd built separate from Do-hyun, separate from Sunwoo's complicated past, separate from everything Korean and organized and violent. Collapsing, because a bitter man with a phone and internet connection could destroy in days what took me a decade to build. As I left the scholarship committee's office earlier that day, I saw him, Elijah, sitting in a coffee shop across the street, watching the building with his phone out. He smiled when he saw me. Actually smiled. Then took a photo. I felt something inside me crack. Maybe it was the last piece of who I used to be. When I got home, Hyjin was waiting in my driveway, leaning against his car, expressionless. Mrs. Park, how bad is it? Federal inquiry is real but preliminary. They received anonymous tip about nonprofit donor connections. Standard procedure. They investigate, find nothing criminal, close case. Takes maybe 3 months. He paused. But in those 3 months, your organization dies. Donors flee. Media coverage. Reputation destroyed. Elijah did this. Yes, he's been systematic. First Angela's scholarship. Then federal tip. Next will be media. He's already contacted Columbus Dispatch, Cleveland Plain Dealer, building narrative of criminal wife using nonprofit as front. I leaned against my car, tired, so tired. Do-hyun sent me with a message. Hyjin continued, let me handle this. You won't like how, but it will end. What does that mean? It means Elijah Brooks becomes a problem that solves itself, publicly, permanently, in a way that discredits everything he said about you. You're talking about killing him. Hyjin's expression didn't change. I'm talking about neutralizing a threat using appropriate organizational resources. The method depends on variables I can't discuss. That's still killing him. Sometimes, not always. He straightened. Do-hyun won't act without your permission. But you should know, Chicago crew is pressuring for resolution. They want Elijah eliminated because he's become liability to them too. If we don't handle this, they will, and their method will be messy. I thought about Angela crying on the phone, about her question, is my future bought with someone else's pain? And I thought about Elijah sitting in that coffee shop, smiling. Taking photos like this was all a game. I need to try one more time, I said, to fix this the right way. Hyjin nodded, said nothing, got in his car and left. The scholarship committee chairman met me in his office the next morning. Kind man, professor of education at OSU, genuinely apologetic. Mrs. Parker, I want to help. Angela is remarkable. Her essay, her grades, her community service. Then give her the scholarship. I can't take the risk. If media picks up story about criminal connections, if other donors hear about it. He spread his hands helplessly. We have a responsibility to protect the scholarship's reputation. So you'll punish a 17-year-old girl for lies someone told about her godmother? I'm sorry. I tried 4 more board members. Got similar responses. Fear, self-protection, reasonable people making reasonable decisions that destroyed Angela's future and mine. By evening, I understood. Playing by legitimate rules meant losing when your opponent didn't care about rules. I sat in my car outside Angela's apartment building, watched her window, light on, probably studying despite everything, despite her world falling apart, because she was strong and smart and deserved better than this. I pulled out my phone, texted Do-hyun one word, yes. His response came immediately. Hae-jin will bring you to the house tonight. There's something you need to see about Elijah that changes everything. Not our house, the one I'd never been to, where Do-hyun conducted actual business. Hae-jin picked me up at midnight. We didn't go to my house. We drove to a warehouse near Port Columbus, one of Do-hyun's legitimate shipping facilities. Inside, Do-hyun waited with a laptop and a man I'd never seen before. Older, 60s, expensive suit, cold eyes. This is Mr. Choi, Do-hyun said quietly. He flew from Seoul with information about Elijah you need to see. It turns out your ex-boyfriend has been busier than either of us knew. Mr. Choi opened the laptop, turned it to face me. Bank transfers? Dozens of them. Dates going back 3 months? Before Elijah approached Angela, before the mall, before any of this started. Payments from accounts in Chicago to Elijah's account, $2,500, $3,000, $5,000. What I saw on that screen made me understand why Elijah had really come back into my life, and it had nothing to do with me. The laptop screen showed bank transfers, dozens of them, dates going back 3 months. Before Elijah approached Angela, before the mall, before any of this started. Mr. Choi spread the evidence across the table like a coroner laying out cause of death, and I realized I'd been looking at this all wrong. Elijah wasn't the disease, he was just a symptom. March 15th, Mr. Choi said, his Korean accent thick but his English precise. First payment, $2,500 from account registered to Park Logistics LLC in Chicago. April 2nd, $3,000. April 27th, $5,000. He tapped the screen with a pen. 12 payments total, $47,000. The same amount Elijah had stolen from me 15 years ago. The symmetry felt deliberate, cruel. Who's Park Logistics? I asked. Do-hyun answered. Korean crew operating out of Chicago, competitors. They control shipping routes through O'Hare, warehouses in Gary, Indiana, distribution networks across the Midwest. We've had territorial disagreements. They're paying Elijah to come after me? Why? Mr. Choi pulled up another document. Email exchanges, text messages, screenshots of phone calls. They saw opportunity. Elijah Brooks, man with connection to Do-hyun's wife, man with history of financial crime, man desperate for money, perfect weapon. Weapon for what? To destabilize your husband's Ohio operations. Mr. Choi's voice stayed flat. Clinical. Korean organized crime in America operates through legitimate businesses. Import-export, shipping logistics, real estate. Your nonprofit accepts donations from these businesses, yes? From Do-hyun's companies, everything properly documented. Doesn't matter. Perception is weapon. Mr. Choi leaned forward. They pay Elijah to create scandal linking your nonprofit to criminal activity. Media coverage, federal investigation. Even if investigation finds nothing, damage is done. Do-hyun's legitimate businesses become toxic. Partners pull out, shipping contracts canceled. Banks freeze accounts pending review. The thing about Korean organized crime that Americans never understand? It's not about who has the most guns. It's about who has the best accountant, the deepest connections, and the longest memory. Do-hyun was about to teach the Chicago crew all 3 lessons at once. While Do-hyun is weakened here, Mr. Choi continued, Chicago crew expands into Columbus shipping routes. Port Columbus becomes their territory. They control freight movement through Ohio. Very profitable. And Elijah knows this? Do-hyun shook his head. Elijah thinks he's being paid as consultant. They told him they want information about me, about our business interests. He thinks he's smart, thinks he found way to get rich and hurt you at same time. His voice hardened. He doesn't understand he's disposable. I stared at the bank transfers, at the emails showing Elijah reporting back to his Chicago handlers, updates about my nonprofit, photos of me and Do-hyun, copies of donor lists. The chairman sent me because this threatens more than Do-hyun's territory, Mr. Choi said. If Chicago succeeds in Ohio, other crews will try same tactic in other cities, using family members to create federal pressure. This must be stopped with clarity, with message. What kind of message? Do-hyun slid another folder across the table, opened it. Inside, photographs of Elijah. Not surveillance photos, documents. Tax returns showing fake businesses, bank statements showing loan defaults, screenshots of dating app profiles where he was cheating on Tiffany. Evidence of unemployment fraud, small-time crimes that added up. We don't destroy Elijah violently, Do-hyun said. We destroy him legitimately. IRS audit, fraud investigation, loan companies calling in debts, his current wife discovering his mistress. Everything organic, everything legal, everything traceable to his own crimes, not our interference. And Chicago? While federal investigators focus on Elijah, we provide them with evidence connecting his activity to Chicago crew, wire transfers, email communications, conspiracy to file false reports. Chicago crew gets federal attention they wanted to put on me, but directed at them instead. Hagen spoke for first time since we'd arrived. Chicago crew will try to silence Elijah once they realize he's compromised. We'll make sure FBI witnesses that attempt. Federal conspiracy charges. Chicago leadership goes to prison. I looked at the three of them. Mr. Choi's cold efficiency, Hagen's sharp calculation, Doohyun's controlled fury masquerading as calm. This is chess, I said quietly. You're using Elijah to trap Chicago. Yes. And Angela? My nonprofit? We're just collateral damage while you play strategy games? Doohyun's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Protecting you is the strategy. But there's one more piece. He nodded to Mr. Choi. The older man pulled up a final document. Text messages, recent, from this morning. Chicago number. Package is in place near her goddaughter's school. Awaiting green light for activation. Elijah's response. What package? Chicago. Insurance. In case Brooks gets cold feet, we activate if needed. My blood went cold. What does that mean? We don't know yet, Hagen said. But we have people watching Angela's school, watching her apartment. Whatever they planted, they haven't activated it. They came for her family. Subscribe to see how far she'll go when there's no more playing nice. They're threatening a 17-year-old girl. My voice came out strange, distant. They're ensuring their investment pays off, Mr. Choi corrected. In their calculation, threatening child creates compliance, makes Elijah continue his work even if he has doubts. I stood up, paced. The warehouse felt too small suddenly, too cold. You said there's a plan, I said to Do-hyun. What is it? Public confrontation at Polaris Fashion Place, same location where this started. Do-hyun's voice stayed even, methodical. We invite Elijah to mediation, tell him you want to discuss settlement, make it seem like you're scared, willing to pay him to go away. And? Federal agents receive anonymous tip about fraud investigation, show up to observe. Chicago crew sends representatives to ensure their investment succeeds. My people position throughout mall, and you? He paused. You wear wire. Get Elijah to incriminate himself in Chicago on recording. When he admits conspiracy, federal agents have probable cause for arrest. Chicago representatives exposed. Everything unravels for them. You want me to be bait? Do-hyun's expression didn't change. I want you to be the hunter. I looked at the photograph of Elijah, at the evidence of his crimes, at the text messages threatening Angela. When? I asked. 72 hours. Saturday afternoon. When mall is crowded. Do-hyun stood, moved closer. But you need to understand, once this happens, there's no going back. Chicago will know we outplayed them. They will retaliate eventually. Your life becomes more complicated, yet not less. My life is already complicated. It gets more so, permanently. I thought about Angela crying on the phone, about Sunwoo's fading memory, about the nonprofit I'd built to help kids like me escape poverty, now being used as ammunition in a war I never chose. Set it up, I said. 72 hours later, I stood in my bathroom at dawn, hands shaking as I attached the wire under my shirt. The adhesive was cold against my skin. Do-hyun watched from the doorway, silent. You don't have to do this, he finally said. I met his eyes in the mirror. Yes, I do. The wire tech's hands were steady as he taped the microphone to my collarbone, but mine trembled, not from fear of Elijah, but from what I was becoming in order to destroy him. His name was Jin-ho, the tech, flown in from Los Angeles specifically for this operation. He worked in silence in Do-hyun's home office, testing frequencies, checking audio levels, making sure every word I spoke would transmit clearly to the receiver's position throughout Polaris. Small movements, Jin-ho instructed in Korean-accented English. Don't touch the pendant. Don't adjust clothing near microphone. Speak naturally. Equipment is sensitive enough to catch whisper from 3 feet away. The wire ran from the microphone at my collarbone down to a transmitter taped to my lower back. The whole setup felt alien, invasive, like my body was being weaponized. Haejin entered with a folder, sat across from me at the desk. These are prompts, he said, spreading papers between us. Questions designed to make Elijah incriminate himself. You'll need to guide conversation naturally towards specific admissions. What admissions? that he accepted payment from Chicago crew, that he deliberately planted false information with federal investigators, that he threatened Angela to ensure your compliance. Haejin tapped each paper. Get him to admit any of these on recording. Federal agents have probable cause. And if he doesn't admit anything, he will. Men like Elijah can't resist gloating when they think they're winning. Haejin's expression was flat, cold. You're afraid alone, asking him to stop. To him, that's victory. He'll brag. The recording device Elijah planted on Angela, it captured everything. Our conversations about Do-hyun's business, Haejin's warnings, even Sunwoo's dementia confession about Busan. Elijah had enough evidence to legitimately implicate us all. We weren't just setting a trap. We were walking into one. We found the package, Haejin continued. The one Chicago mentioned near Angela's school. It was the bracelet Elijah gave her 3 weeks ago. Recording device sewn into the beading. Low grade, but effective. What did it capture? Enough. Angela talking about you, about Do-hyun's name, about the nonprofit's donors, nothing directly incriminating, but enough to build narrative. He paused. Chicago has been collecting evidence to present to federal investigators once scandal broke publicly. They wanted legitimate legal pressure, not just media attention. My hands curled into fists. Where's Angela now? Safe location with 2 of our people. She knows something is happening today, but not details. She's scared, asked to speak to you. No. The word came out harder than I intended. Not until this is over. I don't want her more involved than she already is. Sunwoo arrived an hour later. Haejin's driver brought him from the assisted living facility, confused about why he was being moved in the early morning. But when he saw me in Do-hyun's office, clarity flickered across his face. Tal, daughter. He moved slowly, carefully, like his bones hurt. Today is the day? Yes, Appa. He took my hands, squeezed them with strength I didn't know he still had, then spoke in Korean, words I half understood from years of listening, even if I couldn't speak fluently. Yongso haejuseyo, Tal. Forgive me, daughter. For all of this, for Busan, for bringing you into a world where debts follow across oceans. His eyes were clear, completely lucid. But you are stronger than I ever was. You stayed. You fight. That is Korean, that is Ghanaian, that is American. All of you. He kissed my forehead, then turned to Do-hyun and said something in rapid Korean I couldn't follow. Do-hyun bowed his head, replied quietly, some exchange about protection and honor and duty. When Sunwoo left, Do-hyun was quiet for a long time. What did he say? I asked. That if anything happens to you, the debt between us becomes blood debt, and blood debt has no forgiveness. As I put in my earpiece to hear Haejin's instructions, Do-hyun stopped me. If anything goes wrong, if you feel unsafe for even a second, say the word Appa. Father, I'll pull you out immediately. Consequences be damned. I nodded, then asked the question that had been burning in my throat. What word do I say if I want you to end him? Do-hyun went very still. You don't need a word for that. I'll know. Federal agents received their anonymous tip at 8 a.m. Phone call to FBI field office claiming organized crime meeting planned at Polaris Fashion Place, 2 p.m., suspected interstate racketeering discussion. Enough specificity to prompt investigation, vague enough to seem credible. Haejin's contacts confirmed 2 agents assigned to observe. They'd position an unmarked vehicle in parking lot, monitor from distance. Standard procedure for preliminary intelligence gathering. Chicago crew arrived in Columbus the night before. Do-hyun's surveillance team photographed them at the airport, tracked them to Hampton Inn near Easton. 3 men, early 40s, expensive but not flashy clothes. The kind of operators who blended into business traveler crowds. They were already at Polaris when I arrived. Upper-level food court, watching. Elijah received his invitation Friday afternoon. Haejin called from block number, voice formal and cold. This is representative for Mrs. Park. She would like to meet with you tomorrow to discuss resolution. Polaris Fashion Place, 2 p.m., same location as previous incident. She's prepared to offer compensation in exchange for cessation of harassment. Elijah's response, according to Haejin's recording, laughter. Tell her I'll be there, and tell her to bring a big check. Her reputation costs more than she thinks. Saturday morning, I drove to my nonprofit office. Empty now. 3 more board members had resigned. Major donors pulled funding. The kids we were supposed to help, 15 scholarships we'd planned to award, after-school programming for 40 students, all suspended pending organizational review. I sat at my desk, recorded a video on my phone. For Angela. Baby, if you're watching this, something went wrong today. I need you to know. Everything I did to protect you, your future, your chance at college, at life better than mine. Don't blame Do-hyun. Don't blame yourself. Blame me for not walking away when I should have. I love you. You were the best thing I ever helped raise. I saved it. Gave it to Haejin in sealed envelope with instructions. Deliver only if I'm arrested or killed. Before we left for Polaris, Do-hyun found me in our bedroom. I was dressed simply. Jeans, plain blouse, the clothes of the old Jade, the invisible one. You can still walk away, he said quietly. I'll handle this without you. He used Angela. He tried to destroy the only good thing I built. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd watched me for years before approaching, who'd married me to settle a debt and stayed because of something else. I'm finishing this. She chose revenge over safety. Hit subscribe. The confrontation starts now. We arrived at Polaris separately. I parked near the Nordstrom entrance. Same spot as last time. The symmetry felt deliberate. Do-hyun's people were already positioned. I couldn't see them, but Haejin's voice crackled in my earpiece. 6 on ground level, 4 on second floor, 2 in security office with access to cameras. You're covered. I walked through the entrance, into the atrium. Saturday afternoon shoppers everywhere. Families, teenagers, normal people having normal days. I stood in the center, right where I'd fallen weeks ago, waiting. Elijah arrived exactly on time. I saw him across the atrium. His face lit up with that performative smile. He thought this was his moment, his vindication, with federal witnesses and Chicago backers watching. He started walking toward me, Tiffany trailing behind, phone already out to record. I could hear my heartbeat through the wire. Could feel Do-hyun's people watching from positions I couldn't see. And then Elijah did exactly what we knew he would. He couldn't resist. He called out, loud enough for everyone to hear, Jade, ready to apologize for sending your gangster husband's thugs after me? The wire caught every word. Federal agents outside heard it through their relay. And in that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. Elijah's microphone was visible, clipped to his collar. He was recording too. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was a coordinated sting, and I didn't know who was stinging whom. The mall went quiet as Elijah approached me. That same terrible silence from weeks before when I'd hit the floor and the world stopped to watch. Except this time, I wasn't falling. This time, my hand moved to the necklace hiding the microphone, and I was ready. Elijah walked toward me like a man who'd already won, and for 3 seconds, I almost believed he had, until I saw Do-hyun's reflection in the storefront glass behind him. Jade, Elijah's voice carried across the atrium, performance already beginning. I'm glad you finally came to your senses, ready to discuss how we're going to make this right? Tiffany walked beside him, looking uncomfortable. His friends flanked them, the same people from before, phones already out. But there were 2 new faces, men in their 40s, expensive suits, Korean features, watching from the upper-level food court with the stillness of predators. Chicago crew? Had to be. Make what right. I kept my voice steady, clear, the wire picking up every word. The harassment. Your gangster husband sending his thugs after me, threatening my wife, destroying my reputation. Elijah spread his hands. His microphone glinted on his collar, recording everything. I'm willing to let it all go. Public apology, financial settlement to cover damages, and we both move on with our lives. You approached my goddaughter at her school. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. You gave her a recording device disguised as jewelry. You stole $47,000 from me 15 years ago. What exactly should I apologize for? Elijah's smile flickered. The loans were legitimate business transactions. You signed the papers. Not my fault you couldn't pay them back and had to run to Chicago? I interrupted. To hide from collections agencies while you disappeared with money you never intended to repay? He went still, realized he'd just admitted to the loans on recording, to the amounts, to the fraud. That's ancient history, he said, recovering. What matters now is... The main entrance doors opened. Do-hyun walked in, not rushing, just walking with absolute certainty, and the entire mall's atmosphere changed. Shoppers instinctively stepped aside. Children stopped mid-cry. Even the ambient music seemed to lower in volume. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal sweater. No suit, no visible weapons. Just presence. Elijah saw him and stopped talking. His friends went quiet. Tiffany took a half step back. From the upper level, I saw the Chicago crew members lean forward. One of them made a gesture. Continue. Do-hyun reached me, positioned himself slightly to my left, protective but not dominating my space. Mr. Brooks, his voice was polite, calm. I believe you wanted to discuss compensation? Elijah glanced up at the Chicago crew, then back at Dohen, found his courage. Yeah, compensation for your wife sending armed men to threaten me, for harassment, he paused, then made his fatal mistake. For whatever sexual arrangement you two have where she gets money and protection and you get, well, everyone knows what you get. The insult was deliberate, calculated, designed to provoke Do-hyun into violence in front of federal witnesses. Do-hyun smiled, slightly, the kind of smile that made my stomach drop. I see. Hae-jin? Hae-jin materialized from the crowd near the Nordstrom entrance, tablet in hand. He approached Elijah with the same polite calm. Before we discuss compensation you want, Hae-jin said, let's discuss compensation you owe. The mall's digital advertising screens flickered, all of them, simultaneously. Then they changed. Security footage appeared. Elijah meeting with loan sharks outside a Chicago coffee shop. Dates and times stamped in the corner. Taking envelopes of cash. Forging signatures on business documents. Bank transaction records scrolled past. 47 payments to different accounts. Tax fraud. Unemployment fraud. Business licenses filed under fake names. Text messages between Elijah and the Chicago crew. Explicit discussion of creating federal pressure on Do-hyun Park's Ohio operations. Payment amounts. Instructions to compromise the wife's nonprofit. What nobody tells you about revenge is that it doesn't feel how you expect. I thought I'd feel triumphant watching Elijah in handcuffs. Instead, I just felt tired and scared. Because I just learned exactly how much power Do-hyun had, and I was sleeping next to him every night. Tiffany's face appeared on one screen. Then her phone number, then screenshots from a dating app showing Elijah's profile, active within the last week, messages to other women, photos he'd sent, promises he'd made. She stood frozen near Macy's entrance, watching her marriage explode across 20-foot screens. The footage shifted. Now it showed the Chicago crew members, clear shots of their faces, names appearing beneath, Kim Sung-ho, Park Dae-jung, Lee Myung-soo, their criminal records from Korea, Interpol red notices, known associates of rival organizations. On the upper level, all three men realized simultaneously that they'd been identified, photographed, exposed. They moved toward the exits, but Do-hyun's people were already there. Not blocking, not threatening, just present, making alternative routes disappear. Elijah's phone started buzzing. Notification after notification. His face went white as he read them. Bank accounts frozen, federal seizure warrants, business partners texting to sever ties, credit cards declining, his lawyer's message flashing across the mall screen, do not contact me. You're on your own. The microphone on Elijah's collar, the one he thought was recording evidence against Do-hyun, went dead, jammed. The tiny red light that indicated recording, dark. What did you? Elijah stared at the screens, at his phone, at Do-hyun. We've all fantasized of the perfect revenge, the moment where everyone sees the truth and justice wins. But justice at this level isn't clean. It's coordinated evidence dumps and federal warrants and phone calls made in offices I'll never see. You think you want power like this. You don't. 4 men in suits entered through the west entrance, federal badges visible. They moved past Do-hyun without acknowledgement, heading straight for Elijah. Elijah Brooks? The lead agent pulled out handcuffs. You're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to file false reports, and violation of federal racketeering statutes. You have the right to remain silent. On the upper level, the other agents converged on the Chicago crew. Same charges, same precision. Someone higher in federal law enforcement had made calls. Investigation redirected exactly as Do-hyun planned. Do-hyun turned to me, extended his hand, silent question in his eyes. Is this enough, or do you want more? I looked at Elijah. Not with hatred, with cold pity. I don't need anything from you, Elijah. My voice carried through the atrium. You're already finished. Jade! I turned toward the voice. My blood froze. Angela, running toward me from the parking garage entrance. Behind her, I saw her mother's car. Her friend must have driven her against orders. She saw everything. The screens, the federal agents, Elijah in handcuffs, Do-hyun standing beside me like a general surveying conquered territory. Her face. God, her face. Confusion. Fear, betrayal. Angela, you weren't supposed to. A shout from the upper level. Korean. Sharp. One of the Chicago crew members, Lee Myung-soo, cornered near the food court, pulled a weapon from his jacket. Small caliber pistol. He grabbed a nearby teenager, pulled the kid in front of him as a shield. The mall erupted. Screaming. People running. Federal agents drawing weapons, shouting commands. Do-hyun moved. In one fluid motion, he stepped in front of me and Angela, positioned his body as a barrier between us and the gunman. One hand reached back, finding mine, squeezing once. Then he spoke, so quietly only I could hear, Korean words I'd learned from Sunwoo over the years. Sarange. I love you, 3 syllables. Koreans barely say it. The words carried weight beyond English translation. My breath caught. The scariest part? Do-hyun never raised his voice, never threatened violence, never even touched Elijah. He just orchestrated. Federal agents, mall security, digital screens, bank accounts, all moving like chess pieces he'd positioned weeks ago. That kind of power doesn't announce itself. It just is. Haejin and his team materialized from the crowd, forming a perimeter, not drawing weapons, not escalating, just present. Federal agents surrounded Lee, weapons trained. Drop it. Drop the weapon now. Lee was shouting in Korean, desperate, panicked. Do-hyun raised his voice, still calm, still measured, speaking Korean loud enough for Lee to hear over the chaos. I only understood pieces. But later, Haejin would translate, your chairman already disavowed this operation. You're not backed. Stand down, take federal custody, and you might survive to see Seoul again. Fight here, and you have no protection. Lee's phone rang. He fumbled it out with his free hand, pressed it to his ear, listened. His face drained of all color. The weapon lowered. The teenager he'd grabbed broke free, ran toward security. Federal agents swarmed Lee, taking him into custody. When the Chicago crew leader lowered his weapon, I saw something in his eyes. Not defeat, but relief. Like being arrested by federal agents was preferable to whatever alternative Do-hyun represented. That's when I truly understood what kind of man I'd married. The mall slowly calmed. Federal agents escorted all 3 Chicago crew members out, then came for Elijah. He sat on the marble floor where I'd once fallen, handcuffed, destroyed. His wife walked away without looking back. His friends deleted photos and videos from their phones, distancing themselves as fast as possible. Security footage would show a con man caught by routine federal investigation. Do-hyun's hand, invisible. Angela stood beside me, trembling. Is any of it real? She whispered. Your nonprofit, the scholarships, the help you gave me, or was it all just... The kids we helped are real. I turned to face her. The scholarships are real. The money was complicated, but the love was never a lie. Complicated? Her voice broke. Jade, what are you? I didn't have an answer. Federal agents finished with Elijah, hauled him to his feet. As they escorted him toward the exit, he looked back at me one last time. Not with hatred, with confusion. Like he still couldn't understand how the broke girl he'd abandoned became someone who could orchestrate his complete destruction without raising her voice. I turned away, took Angela's hand, walked toward the parking garage exit where Do-hyun waited. Behind us, the mall slowly returned to normal, shoppers resuming shopping, children crying again, life continuing like nothing had happened. But as we reached the parking lot, I saw him. An older Korean man, 70s maybe, standing beside a black Mercedes different from Do-hyun's fleet but unmistakably expensive. Tailored suit, silver hair, face weathered but eyes sharp. He bowed slightly when he saw us. Do-hyun stopped walking. His entire body tensed in a way I'd never seen before. Who is that? I whispered. Do-hyun's voice was barely audible. The chairman. He wasn't supposed to come until next month. She got revenge. But the price? Subscribe to see what the chairman demands when he comes to collect. The old man smiled, spoke in Korean, formal, respectful. Do-hyun translated, his face carefully neutral. He says congratulations on settling your father's debt. Now it's time to discuss your own. 3 months after Elijah's arrest, I stood in the chairman's presence for the first time and understood why Do-hyun had looked so tense in that parking lot. This man didn't just command respect, he commanded destinies. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened in those 3 months first. Elijah got 15 years. Federal prison, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, tax evasion, filing false reports, RICO violations, his businesses, the fake ones and the barely legitimate ones, seized by the government. Tiffany divorced him within 6 weeks and remarried a dentist from Westerville 2 months later. His friends scattered like roaches when lights turn on. The Columbus Dispatch ran their story. But it wasn't about my nonprofit being a criminal front. It was about Elijah Brooks, con man, who tried to extort a local nonprofit director and got caught by federal investigators. Do-hyun's hand, invisible. My nonprofit survived. Barely. We lost 4 major donors who couldn't handle the association with scandal, but we gained 7 new ones. Smaller amounts, but people who appreciated the transparency we showed during investigation. The board restructured, added independent oversight, hired an external auditor. The work continued. That's what mattered. Angela's scholarship committee reinstated her application once evidence cleared my organization. She accepted, but on her terms. We met for coffee at that same shop where Elijah had watched me weeks before. She sat across from me, no longer the trusting teenager who'd worn his bracelet. "I want the truth," she said. "All of it. What Do-hyun really does, where the money really comes from, what you've become." So I told her. Everything. The Korean organizational structure, the legitimate businesses that funded illegitimate ones, the protection I'd accepted, the power I'd used to destroy Elijah. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "I'm taking the scholarship," she finally said, "and I'm grateful for everything you've done for me, but I'm drawing a line. I'll be your goddaughter. I'll love you, but I won't enter his world. Ever." "I understand. Do you?" Her eyes searched mine. "Because you entered it. You chose it." "I did." "Why?" "Because powerless people can't protect the ones they love." I met her gaze. "You're right to draw boundaries. I hope you never have to cross them." You know what's strange about finally getting justice? It doesn't erase what happened. Elijah is in prison, my work survived, Angela's future is secure, but I still remember how that marble felt when I hit it. Power changes what happens next. It doesn't change what already happened. The chairman came to Columbus on a Thursday afternoon in March. Snow falling outside. He sat in Do-hyun's formal living room, the one we never used, while Haejin prepared traditional Korean tea. The ceremony was elaborate, specific. Every movement had meaning. I didn't fully understand, but recognized as important. The chairman spoke in Korean. Do-hyun translated. "Your father, Sun-woo, saved my life when I was young and foolish. He warned me of betrayal when staying silent would have made him rich. He took punishment meant for me. This created Yoonhee, profound debt that cannot be measured in money or favors." I nodded, listening. "By marrying you and protecting you, Do-hyun honored that debt. By allowing you to use our resources to protect your goddaughter and your work, the debt extended to the next generation." The chairman's eyes were sharp, assessing. "You could have chosen safety and silence. You chose courage and visibility. This pleases me." He paused, sipped his tea, continued in Korean. Do-hyun translated, "The debt is settled. Sun-woo's honor is restored. His daughter has repaid what he owed through her strength, not her suffering." Relief flooded through me. It was over. The weight I'd carried since learning about Busan, about Do-hyun's watching, about generational obligation, released. Then the chairman smiled. "But in our culture," Do-hyun translated, "settling one debt often creates opportunity for another." My stomach dropped. "I offer you a choice," the chairman continued through Do-hyun. "Remain as Do-hyun's wife, protected, civilian, separate from organizational business, or accept formal role as advisor on community development and legitimate enterprise expansion." What does that mean? It means you would have voice in how we invest, where we build, how we transition dirty money into clean futures. You would sit in meetings, make recommendations, shape strategy. Do-hyun's voice stayed neutral, but his eyes held a question. You would become part of the hierarchy, not just protected by it, responsible to it. And if I say no, nothing changes between us, Do-hyun said quietly, his own words now, not translation. "I married you for me, not for debt. Not for organization. Whatever you choose, that doesn't change." The chairman gave me 48 hours to decide. I visited Sun-woo in hospice that evening. The dementia had worsened. Most days he didn't know me. But that night, his eyes cleared when I walked in. "Tal, you came. Always, Appa." I told him about the chairman's offer, about the choice. He took my hand, squeezed with surprising strength. "Nonnon jayurapda," he said in Korean. "You are free. Choose for yourself. Not for me, not for debt, for anyone." He smiled. "You were never payment for what I owed. You were proof I did something right." He died 2 weeks later. Peacefully, debt settled, daughter safe. They say you become what you fight. I fought to stay separate from Do-hyun's world. Now I sit in organizational meetings, advising on legitimate business development, moving money from crime to community. I didn't become what I fought. I became something more complicated. I accepted the role, not for Sun-woo's debt, not for Do-hyun's approval, but because I realized I could do more good with power than without it. I'd take their dirty money and build clean futures, transform violence into opportunity, become the bridge between worlds nobody else could walk. Angela's scholarship ceremony happened on a Saturday in May. I sat in the auditorium at Ohio State, watching her walk across that stage, accepting congratulations for academic excellence and community service. Outside in the parking lot afterward, snow melting into spring rain, the chairman's Mercedes pulled up. He rolled down the window, congratulated me on my first major decision as organizational advisor, expanding nonprofit operations to 3 more Ohio cities: Cincinnati, Cleveland, Toledo. "Your father saved a life," he said in careful English. "You're saving a generation. This is how debts are truly repaid. Not blood for blood, but light for darkness." His car drove away. I stood with Angela and Dohyun, watching taillights disappear. I wasn't the Ghanaian orphan anymore, not the abandoned girlfriend, not the woman on that mall floor. I'd become something harder to define. Moral center of an immoral empire, bridge between worlds, protector who wielded power she once feared. The ending wasn't happy or sad. It was real. I thought that was the end. The debt settled, new role accepted, life finally stable in its dangerous complexity. Then, 3 weeks later, I received a package from Seoul. Inside, a photograph, old, faded, my mother, the woman who died giving birth to me in Accra. Except in this photo, she was standing in Busan, Korea, with fishing boats behind her. 25 years before I was born, she wore nice clothes, stood among men I recognized from old organizational photos. Not as victim, not as outsider. She stood like she belonged, like she was one of them. The note in Korean read, "Naamre Jong Hana Yutta." Your mother was one of us. I called Dohyun, my hands shaking. "Did you know?" His long silence told me everything. "The chairman wanted you to discover it yourself," he finally said. "When you were ready. Your mother wasn't random. Your adoption by Sunwoo wasn't random. And your marriage to me," he trailed off. I finished. "Was never random at all. 40 years of secrets. 2 continents, 3 generations. And I was standing at the center of a story I'd never known I was part of. I need to be honest with you for a moment. I put my heart, time, and sleepless nights into making this story. When people watch and don't subscribe, it really hurts. If this story touched you even a little, please take just 3 seconds to subscribe. It would honestly mean the world to me. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one. Her entire life was built on secrets. Every answer just created more questions. You'll need to see what happens when she discovers who she really is.